Alright guys, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to make a Greek tea out of the things that I bought from Greece. I'm going to use all the ingredients, just a few. Starting with a kettle, the most important thing is to have it at boil temperature. If your kettle has temperatures, if it doesn't, you don't have to worry. It always brings the water to a boil. This one is a little bit more fancy if you're really into tea. It lets you pick the temperatures. As you can see there, I have it at boil. I'm waiting for it to finish. Until this thing finishes, I'm using spring water in this one. If I don't have spring water, I use RO water. RO strips a lot of the mineral content. So whenever I use an RO water, I usually add some salt, either this black lava salt or the Hawaii Alea salt. But there's also this one here. It's a little bit more bitter. That's a salt from Cyprus. Actually, it's smoked. It's not really good for teas and stuff, but yeah, the black salt usually does a trick. It adds that, restores a little bit of mineral content in there. So let me go over the things what I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be using some of this. This is called the Greek mountain tea, or also known as sidiritis. I'm going to pour a little bit of that in there, just a little bit more. I'm going to use what they call melisochorto. This is really good with allergies. I don't know what the English word for that is. I'll have to find it out and tell you what it is. But right now I can't remember it on the top of my head. I'm going to pour some of this inside. This is really good for allergies, guys. If you're suffering from allergies, this will fix it for you. Moving on, this is agriada. It's very similar in texture with astragalus root, but it's not astragalus root. It's actually it's also a root that grows in the ground, as you can see, but it's different. It's very antioxidant. It's what they call in Taoism, the Chinese herbal medication, a yin or a yin. I don't really have the accent for it. And finally, I'm going to use this. It looks like a little apple with spikes. This is one of my favorites. It adds that real sweetness and bitterness into it at the same time. I'm only going to use one in this case. You have to break it in half in order for it to steep better. So I'm going to use a little knife here to cut it up. Let me get a knife. Sorry, I'm doing this live now. Try to cut it in half. It's a little bit hard to cut, but once you get it, it's good. Make sure you have a filter on this because it will release those little things here that fly around. I don't know how they're called, like little feathers. So make sure before you put it in there that you use a filter like this one. This is a generic teapot that I bought. So this is enough tea to brew about 2 or 3 infusions. I'm going to pour the water now while it's boiling. And I'll let it steep for about 7 minutes. Keep in mind all roots require about 6 to 7 minutes to steep. So make sure you give it a full time for it. And while this thing is steeping and sitting in there, I'm going to go over one last ingredient that I haven't told you about. So keep in mind, this is bitter. All of this is in raw form. So all of the things that you've seen there are pretty raw in the roots or leaf version of them. So you need to add some sweetness to it. Most people will go with sugar. Honestly, I haven't used sugar. I don't even remember in the form of a processed raw sugar, the white one that you buy at the grocery store. I can't remember what was the last time that I bought one. These days I either use stevia or I use honey. In this case, I'm going to use a biological Greek honey that only grows in one area of Greece that gets produced by this little flower that you see there. They call it Kokkinos kokos, which is basically saffron. It's a saffron honey. It's biological. It's really good. It only grows in one specific region in Greece, and the flavor of it is amazing. It has that floral flavor. I'm a big fan of honey. I have tried several types of honey the past years, and I'm going to do another video on that. I have a collection of honeys that I'm going to go into deep depth about it. So let me open it up real quick. I can't pour it in right now because the thing is steeping. Let me just show you how it looks like. You can see all the saffron here stuck up and that redness into it. Wow, it smells amazing. This is probably the best honey that I've had, followed only by one. This one right here. This is a pine honey that grows again in pines, and it can get collected only one time a year when it gets pollinated by the bees. So yeah, I'm gonna pour 1 teaspoon of that into my tea. I like it pretty sweet in general, but feel free to adjust what you want. Or you could use stevia. Stevia is also a good option. I like the honey flavor and the properties of honey, anti-inflammatory and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's it. When that's done steeping, I'll add this honey and I'll drink it. Cheers.